It's go 937 Artemis here, and I've been looking forward to this interview for a while. There's a lot of activists in Flint for the Flint Water Crisis, and a lot of people have stepped forward and said, hey, like, this is a problem, and one of the main ones in our city is Melissa Mays. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
It's good to finally get you in the building and talk about what's really happening with this crisis, and you're an actual Flint resident.
Yes.
It isn't someone in Grand Blanc or Davison complaining about the water. It's someone in Flint that has been dealing with it, and not only someone, but someone who has a family. You know, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 sons.
3 sons.
Yes.
3 sons. And when did you start noticing problems with, let's go right back to the beginnings where you started noticing a lot of health problems in your family?
Well, at first it was like weird things like rashes. I had like this rash on my face, and I used to joke that it's not leprosy. Oh my God, it's just Flint water.
Yeah.
At the time I knew nothing about water treatment, or how bad it actually was, so I just make a joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't funny. It's not funny now. At the time it was, because everybody else, I'd see them, they're like, oh, I got it too, you know? And then about August, my hair started falling out in clumps. Mm-hmm. September, my son, my youngest, he's 11 now, developed pneumonia, which I thought, that's weird, summertime pneumonia, but you know, weird things happen. We're a busy family. I was raising my two-year-old niece at the time, and she would get these awful blisters, like diaper rash, like you wouldn't believe, when I give her a bath. And we got all these different creams. The pediatrician was completely baffled. And then also in September, my middle child fell off his bike and his wrist buckled. The 2 bones in his wrist just buckled. Ugh. And they said that's a really weird thing, because you know, you're a kid, you drink plenty of milk, you're healthy. Why are your bones so brittle? And so, you know, it was kind of odd. Everybody started getting tired. And then December of 2014, I got an upper respiratory infection for 6 weeks, and when I coughed, the phlegm tasted like bleach. And I said, that's messed up. Still had no idea it was the water, nor would I think to link it to the water, until January. I got that notice in the mail that says, oh, by the way, for the past 9 months, your water's been contaminated with a cancer-causing byproduct.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
You know, but you'll be fine, but you might want to consult with your doctor first.
Yeah, and then from there, it seemed like you took a stand against it. It was something to where, you know, there's thousands of residents that have to deal with the Flint Water Crisis right now, but you took a stand against it, and you've been an activist ever since.
Yeah, that was my start. I held that little tri-fold piece of paper in my hand, and I said I could have thrown this away. It didn't look important. It looked like another streetlight assessment for a streetlight that I don't have, another tax I have to pay for something I don't have. But it wasn't. I opened it up, and then I looked at it, and then I said, oh my God, our water is actually contaminated. It's not just the yellow water every once in a while that we would get, because we never had horrible brown water. We just had yellow water. Some days it would smell like a sewer. Some days it would smell like rotten eggs. Some day it would smell like dirt. You know, we're like, okay, but they always had excuses. You know, river water's harder water, and
the iron or something.
Blah, blah. Yeah.
Right.
So, and they blame it on other people's pipes. And I'm like, well, it's, you know, we're lucky, I guess. And, you know, busy lady, didn't even think about it. And then, you know, it just clicked. I'm sitting there holding this piece of paper in my hand. I just lost it. And I hit Google, started looking up like all the possible health consequences of TTHMs. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a lot worse.
Now, what is TTHM?
It's total trihalomethanes. And what that is it's a byproduct. It's a gas. It's chloroform. And it's released once too much chlorine is put in the system. It interacts with like dirt and other particles, just organic particles in the pipes. And we'd had all these main breaks, so there's all this junk in the lines, plus we were using river water, which you know, nobody to this day can tell us what was all in it. And so the more chlorine they dumped in to cover for the E. coli notices that we'd already had, the boil advisories that we'd had, and that I didn't find out about until after all 3 of them had hit my area. They didn't send anything out. It was just little blips on Facebook, and I didn't catch on to it. I didn't pay attention to the news because busy.
Well, yeah, you're busy. Yeah, you're a mom trying to raise your kids, and next thing you know, all these incidents are happening. So it became something that wasn't just a coincidence then. It wasn't just like, oh, you know, it's strange that my son had, you know, pneumonia in the summer.
Yeah.
You know, like when nobody gets pneumonia in the summer. I mean, it's very rare. So once that happened, who did you start working with to try and build a team? Because you have a pretty big team now. I mean, you work with the mayor, you work with, you know, upper government, you know. Who did you start working with to sort of get this stuff out there to the public?
The first were residents. We had a protest that Gina Marie, she's a friend of mine, actually through all the band stuff I do with promoting and putting on concerts. Her boyfriend's a bass player, great bass player. And she said, you know, I'm going to start a protest. I'm like, I've never done that before. Go for it. I will be there. So we're sitting there in 16-degree weather, standing outside holding these awesome signs that my husband made, the Flint Water Skull sign and stuff that's kind of iconic now. And all of a sudden I started talking to all these other residents. Everybody had hair loss, rashes, sore bones, sore muscles.
It's almost like and I hate to... like make it into this, but it's almost like a zombie outbreak almost.
Oh,
when
exactly.
you think about it. Like, it starts with something small, like, a rash, and then you lose your hair, and then your insides, your bones start deteriorating,
yes.
and they hurt and everything. So you got your residents together, you did a protest, and what came from that?
Well, we got a hold of Erin Brockovich, and she's like, all right, well, if anybody has this information, because I just started digging. I just started looking up information and trying to go to city council meetings to talk to people, and I'd spoken with Howard Croft at the time, and I asked him for some of the treatment process, because Erin had asked me to ask him. So I'm, I don't know anything. I sort of pretended I was a student and went to a water treatment plant tour,
wow,
so I could ask some questions.
Look at you, undercover. Yeah.
I don't think he bought it, but but he did. He gave me the information I needed that Erin had asked for, and I sent it to Bob Bocock. She said, this guy is top of the line. He knows water treatment. Let's figure out what's happening to you guys. And so I did. I started sending this off to him, started talking to him every day for about 3 weeks, and he was like, you guys are in a mess.
Yeah.
A huge mess here. And he was like, I'm coming out. So February 14th, I'd already had my first march planned, because I figured I can put on concerts. I can go ahead and throw a march. Let's do this.
It's promoting.
Exactly.
And it's promoting what's going on in Flint.
And there were so many people that were angry. It was 10 degrees, snowing sideways. Bob flew out from California. He toured the water treatment plant, met with the former mayor, met with city council, talked to everybody that had anything to do with water, and then he gave a town hall meeting and said, this is what you need to do for an hour and a half. That day, which is February 14th, Valentine's Day, which I'm sure his wife wasn't happy about, he had marched in 10-degree weather. Like I said, he's from California, so whoopsie. Yeah. He was not prepared for that.
Right.
And then he gave a town hall, and he talked about how we were in violation of lead and copper rule.
Yeah.
So he was one of the first people to speak out about that. And U of M came out and said, oh, by the way, we've got high lead. And then I had met Leanne Walters during February, and she said, I just got my lead test back. It's high. I'm like, all right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call a press conference. And that's what I did. Called a press conference and said, guess what? Also, on top of TTHMs and E. coli and all this other stuff, we've got lead in the water. They blacked us out.
Wow.
Yeah.
They blacked you out.
Blacked it out. Cut it out. They cut it out. They did not want to talk about the lead.
Now, who cut it out?
The media, local media.
The local
except
media.
Except for there was one reporter that was like on it and stuff like that. And so I did everything I could, used all my contacts, and pushed and pushed and pushed. So every chance we got, because I held educational meetings, press conferences left and right, did more protests, more marches. We talked about all the contaminants in the water.
Right.
My husband and I actually printed off our tax return last year. We printed off 4,000 door hangers that talked about lead and the other contaminants in the water and numbers to call and things like that. So my kids and I thought it was, I told them it was fun, to go door to door to hang door hangers, to let people know you're not alone, you're not crazy, it's not in your head, you need to get help, get your water tested, and go to the doctor. And this was March of 2015.
So, and I mean, I've seen you at city council meetings as well, and the whole thing that came up with some of them, fudging the numbers on the on the amount of lead and contamination in the water and everything. And there's a lot of people that still to this day look at it and they're like, oh, well, it's not that bad in Flint, or, it's not that bad. But it's more than just a lead issue.
Yes.
I mean, you have Legionnaire's disease now that has killed how many people?
12 that we know of. And that's the sad part, is that my son was never diagnosed with Legionnaire's because the state never told us that Legionnaire's was an issue. So the doctors weren't notified to actually look for it. Right. You diagnose pneumonia as pneumonia. Legionella is a form of pneumonia, except it's a specific form that can kill you if you've got breathing issues or immune compromised.
Or if you're young or old as well,
exactly.
too.
And the thing is that all of us are now immune compromised because we've been exposed to this chloroform, which they use it to knock people out in movies.
Yeah.
They used to use it as anesthesia.
Yeah.
But day after day, be breathing these different chemicals. Because again, nobody wants to talk about the bath water. They want to talk about the tap water. Oh, we're taking these samples for 2 minutes out of cold tap water, and you'll be fine. I don't bathe in cold water in my kitchen
and you
tap.
don't wash your vegetables. That's like when you wash your vegetables, you're using the water in Flint. I mean, that's the thing. People say, oh, well, celebrities brought money and they brought bottles of water, and that's a short-term fix for people who like to drink out of bottled water, I guess. But when it comes to showering, I mean, you look at little kids, like you mentioned the diaper rash thing.
Yeah.
That's not normal. That's not a normal thing.
That's their body reacting to something they're not supposed to be in.
Right.
It's actually bleached my hair. I used to have darker hair, so every day I look and I'm like, oh no. And it feels like sticks. It falls out again. I don't need a PhD to know that whatever's in my shower is hurting my body. The rashes, the hair loss haven't stopped in 2 years. And everybody wants to talk about about the lead. Lead's not going to hurt you in a shower unless they can actually connect the fact that it's all particulate lead, the pieces of lead, and if you can inhale those like you inhale lead dust, that's an issue, and that needs to be researched.
Right, or lead paint.
But yeah, or with lead paint. But that's the issue, is that nobody's actually looked into showering. There's no federal bathing or showering standards, and that's one of the scariest things ever.
Right, and that's the thing too, is when you think about it, the media has portrayed it, at least the mass media has portrayed it as something that has gone away now in Flint. I mean, there's no CNN out here anymore. There's no Fox News, MSNBC. They have all seemed to go away, and I've even noticed, and nothing against the local media, but the local media hits it as like, oh, hey, it's still going on, but that's it. And then we have the president that comes to town and he says that it's safe to drink. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Someone who is actually... what bothers me the most about the Flint Water Crisis is that it's a crisis. It's not something that has gone away in the past couple of years, and you can't falsify facts.
No.
I mean, there's like, when you've done the water testing with people who have degrees in water testing, it's something that's real. So what do you say to people like the president that are like, oh, it's safe to drink, it's safe to, as long as you have a filter, I mean, you look at like the residents of Flint that receive those filters. Some of them didn't even work, On
weekends, Flint Rising goes door to door, and we canvass, and we ask people. We've knocked on 13,000 doors because it's a small group of volunteers, and 75% of them don't either have a filter, or that didn't know not to run hot water through it, or didn't know to replace their cartridge every 3 weeks as opposed to every 3 months like the instruction says, or they don't have a sink that fits it, and that's why the UA 370, the Plumbers Union, has been going out replacing sinks for people and installing filters properly, because if you don't install it properly, it's not going to work.
Right.
And again, it's only rated up to 150 parts per billion of lead, and I sat with a family tonight that had almost 8,000 parts per billion, just tested.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not gotten better. There's a neighbor near me, 22,900 parts per billion.
And see, those are facts. That's what really bothers me, is when people that live in these other cities outside of Flint, or either somewhere in Michigan or even the United States, and they're like, well, the crisis, it's lead, but it's more than lead, and there's facts to back it up.
The iron corrosion feeds Legionella. So that corrosion in the galvanized pipes, which the mayor's now talking about needing to replace, not just lead but galvanized.
Right.
They need to go too, because that iron feeds, and what the iron corrosion feeds the bacteria that could kill you. But then on top of it, it's releasing all this chloroform, and on top of it, it's very rocky on the inside of galvanized pipes, so you can't recoating it's about impossible. It's like trying to use a brush to paint a plaster wall.
Right.
It's not easy. They just need to go. The recoating, plus they're not talking about the side effects of the phosphoric acid they're putting in and the additional chlorine to put in on top of that, because phosphates tend to be bacteria food.
So when you look at like the big picture of this, I mean, obviously when you have someone like the president visiting, there was a lot of Flint residents that were like, hey, listen, you visited, that's great, but there's no solution yet. They're saying, oh, it's going to take 2 years, but and what bothered me the most was that the president said, okay, you can drink the water, but if you're pregnant, have a child, or if you're older, you're not
immune compromised, that we all are.
Right, right. So what do you tell residents in Flint now? I mean, as an activist, to do in the meantime?
Trust their gut. Do they think that filter's keeping them safe from all the contaminants in our water? Right. It might be filtering out some lead. That's great, but you never know, and that chip of lead's going to break off and completely blow the filter. It's going to clog it up and all that stuff. And then it has not been tested for chloroform. It's not been tested for all the different bacteria.
Right.
We don't know what's all in our water, which is scary. So how are we supposed to protect ourselves? So we don't use the water through the filter. We use the filter we got is in the bathroom to wash our hands safely in cold water.
So what do you do like with your kids then?
All bottled water.
Even
all bottled
showering
water.
and everything?
No, unfortunately, we have a camping shower, and we've tried, and it's so...
it's like living like
it's
like
so heavy,
Yeah.
and my kids are trying to put that over their heads, and they're exhausted, and it's horrible, so we still have to shower in it. So here's how my kids have to shower. Sit down in the tub, fill the cup up, and dump it over their heads. My kids are 11, 13, and 17. They don't love that. But steam, inhalation, and absorption are two exposures, two pathways to exposure for all the other contaminants.
So, I mean, what do you do for, a mom or a child that wants to have a hot bath? You know what I'm saying?
Go out of town.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
I mean...
I miss baths. I have osteoarthritis now, so I've got bone spurs starting from my neck going all the way down to my feet. And so the only thing... And plus I have, looks like the onset of lupus. And, after I have a seizure, my muscles hurt really bad. So all I want is a hot bath.
What do you say to people that will watch this and say, oh, this is, InfoWars, like Alex Jones type stuff to where it's the government out to get people? I mean, what do you say to those people? Because it seems like people want to turn their head to it as opposed to face the truth.
Because it's not happening to them yet. But this is what they need to pay attention to. If it can happen in Michigan, which is the Great Lakes state, if this can happen in a large city, it can happen to your town too. And if you look, there's hundreds of communities now that are speaking up saying, oh my God, we are in violation of Safe Drinking Water Act for TTHMs, for chloroform. Oh my God, we've got lead. Oh my God, we've got high copper, iron, bacteria. We've got Legionnaires. I have cities from all over the country contacting me saying, my husband just got diagnosed with Legionnaires. It's, it's May. What's going on? And I'm like, okay, so this is what you need to look into. Everybody just, whether they feel sorry for us or not, and we don't want that. What I want us to be is a good example of when residents get together, they know it's wrong. You get educated and you stand up for what's right. Because they told us for 18 months it was safe to drink our water until finally we broke them down. And now they're trying to tell us it's safe to bathe. We're going to break that down too. But I want everybody to know that you do have the power. Your voice is important. Every single voice and every single story counts. So you're not alone. You're not crazy. Stand up with each other. Talk to your neighbors about it. And if you think that Flint's just the only city because we're poor or we're thugs or whatever people think we are, guess what? It's not just us in Michigan. It's not just us. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. All that money in the world is not going to save you from contaminated water.
So if there's a Flint resident that's watching this right now and they want to get more information, they want to contact you or reach you, as far as being, an activist and standing up, and it's not standing up against the government and against big, the business suits and everything. It's just standing up for what's right and what's right for your family. But if they're watching this right now and they want to be a part of your, not necessarily team, but you're, being an activist, how do they contact you?
My website's water, WATERYOU, FIGHTINGFOR.com. What are you fighting for? All spelled out. I'm on Facebook that way too, but people can message me if they have questions. Just hit me up. I will help as much as I can.
And what's great is, we've worked together before, and I messaged you because I was like, hey, I'm at such and such location, and you messaged back within 10 minutes. You're like, no, you're fine. Like, you know what you're talking about. You're not crazy. You're not nuts. You're an activist for the city, and that's why I wanted to talk to you because, me as a person, I appreciate what you do, and I'm not even a resident of Flint. I don't lie about it. I don't say like, oh, I live right in the city, but I know I have best friends that do and that deal with this crisis every day. So as a member of the community or the outside community, I thank you. So.
No, it's no problem. Like we're all in this together, whether it's hitting you now or later, because again, there's a huge water change coming up for Genesee County, so everybody needs to be aware and just get your water tested and talk to other people and, just share our story. If you don't want to donate water, hey, it's totally up to you because we're tired of the bottled water anyways. We just want new pipes. Just you broke it, you fix it. Just please change our pipes. But share our story so maybe somebody else won't feel so alone. Somebody else that will say, oh, those rashes aren't in my head. Oh, my hair's not falling out because of stress. I'm having seizures. It's not that I'm crazy. It's not this. The doctors can't give me an answer. Well, you know what? We'll do what we can to help you, and you're not alone, and we'll fight together.
Awesome. Melissa, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.